So, should we bring in the closer?
I
And
think it'd be a good time for that.
all right.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Free Baseball Podcast presented by the Athletes Hub, episode number 79.
Oh, so close. We gotta
so
go. We gotta
close.
go like reverse so we can get back
Yeah.
to 69.
Yeah, I think every time like we get to 100, we just need to go backwards to it again.
Just backwards and forwards, hopping
yeah.
in between 69 and 100.
This beanied man is Jake Crumpler, and I'm Davis Bird. We're gonna talk about baseball. Hey, imagine that, it's a baseball podcast. Jake, do the rest of it because I'm gonna sneeze.
What makes you think this is a baseball podcast? Could it be the name of the podcast? Could it be the aforementioned beanie? Could it be the fact that Davis has zero baseball memorabilia on or in his background? Or could it be that we have the World Series matchup decided and depicted here on my couch because I'm so lucky to have like 18 MLB teams, and 2 of them I have hats of.
Couch.
Yeah.
I thought that was your bed, Jake. Wow.
Oh, did I say couch? Yeah, I sleep on a couch. No, I'm Kyle XY. I sleep in the bathtub. Yeah, no, this is my bed. It's purple. Purple's my favorite color. I don't know if you can tell, but the reason that we have a purple logo is thanks to me. Big purple guy, and there is the common feeling I think around people that favorite color is purple is that everything has to be purple. Everything has to be purple if that's your favorite color, and that's definitely how it is for me.
Definitely big Kyle XY guy, because that's like the 7th time you mentioned that since before we even started the podcast.
Ask my coworkers. I'm saying it like once an hour.
Kyle XY, Kyle XY, Kyle XY.
Mm-hmm.
Sick. The Giants have not hired Kyle XY. They have hired Bob Melvin as their new manager, and they also extended Farhan. Is it Zaidi? Is that how it's pronounced? Zaidi for 3 years. Imagine that. Very cool. So Giants cool. Man, talk about your Giants.
So cool. The biggest news out of this, like as huge as getting a new manager and extending your successful president of baseball operations is, the owner, or I don't know if Farhan was relaying the sentiments of the owner, but he said his biggest goal is to break even. He doesn't want the team to win. He wants to break even financially. And it's like, who cares how much money you make, Mr. Billionaire? We want to win games. And yeah, that was sort of the big discussion point in Giants Twitter and social media in general. But yeah, I mean, we get Bob Melvin. He's a Bay Area dude, not only because he managed for the A's for several years successfully at that, but also he is just from the area. Very cool to have him. I think he's a very solid manager, very mild tempered. And I think he sort of does a good job of towing the line of being like the old school manager where he manages based off feel and everything like that. And also being able to incorporate advanced statistics and that kind of stuff. And Farhan, I think, is one of the best GMs or head of baseball operations in the sport, but he is sort of limited, like I said, by the owner in San Francisco with how large their payroll is. Usually you wouldn't really expect them to be a team that's like limited by their payroll, but they should be like a top 5 spending team in the sport, and they are not. And that's ultimately what's going to limit them over the next 3 years. But with a successful manager and a president of baseball ops that knows how to cut costs, cut corners, and still put out either 500 teams or franchise win record-breaking teams. I feel pretty good about this. I think it's a good group, and it's really all going to be dependent on how much money they're allowed to spend.
He's from Palo Alto, California, which I have no clue where that is. Was that close to the Bay Area where you're from?
It is not. The Bay Area is a pretty large area.
Yeah, it's the entire area encompassing the Bay.
No, it's probably a lot of. It's probably bigger than a lot of those states in the Northeast, all the really small ones. Yeah, so it's like it goes all the way. Like it's San Francisco is obviously the center, and then there's the East Bay, which is like Oakland and Berkeley, and then there's the North Bay, which many people aren't familiar with, like Marin, and the South Bay is where like San Jose is. So it's a pretty large area. And it's got millions of people living in it. I live in the East Bay. That's what I'm most familiar with, inland. But Palo Alto is South Bay.
Whack. Not from where Jake's from, so who cares about Bob's Melvin? Farhan, really good GM. I know he's like, we always joke about the Giants like cheating lab. I feel like he's a pretty big part of that because the Giants have been so good at like the reclamation projects. Like they've been a really good team at that. And this next guy that we're going to talk about the East Bay. We can talk about the East Coast and the Boston Red Sox hiring their new director of baseball operations, Craig Breslow, from the Chicago Cubs. He was their head of pitching development, and the Cubs were a pretty good team at reclamation projects for pitchers. One of the teams that consistently tried to do that. I know our friend Martin asked me specifically about it. Like I know the guy, to be honest, but I know. But yeah, I mean, he was the head of pitching development for the last like 3-4 years, and that's like depends on really what you think of the Cubs' homegrown pitching development from the last few years in terms of what you really want to rate him. I mean, they've pumped out a couple decent relievers, Adbert Alzolay, which is kind of a failed starter turn reliever. Keegan Thompson, a few pretty decent relievers. Plus Justin Steele is a Cy Young candidate this year. And they have a couple reclamation projects. Depends on what you really think, but I don't know. I kind of honestly expected the Red Sox to go with a bigger name. Very, very, very specific one. Care to take a guess?
That would be too cool.
Care to take a guess who I thought it might be?
Theo Epstein.
I kind of figured they'd go back with Theo. Didn't happen. But yeah, I mean, Craig Breslow going to be there in Boston. You have any thoughts on this? Or is this sort of like it happened kind of move?
I have no idea anything about Craig Breslow, and it'll be interesting to see how that works out. I think it's always cool when a new president of baseball operations comes in because the team's going to be built differently. I don't think that they were unsuccessful under Chaim because of Chaim, but Breslow should definitely breathe new life into that organization. And Chaim sort of setting him up with a very, very good farm system. So he's going to have it pretty easy early on. And then it's going to be about acquiring talent for the major league team, whether that be in free agency or via trade, and sort of being able to analyze and judge the talent that you already have on your team and how you go about roster building. And that's going to be how that works out. We're not going to be able to judge him based on his first season, especially because that's basically a team that Chaim built, and then he just got to put ancillary pieces on. But within the next 3 years from now, by 2026, I think we'll have a pretty good idea of how successful this signing was.
Yeah, definitely. I love the roster construction conversation, and I'm really excited to talk about this once we get to our World Series preview. But before we get to that, I have to talk about the Championship Series review because we were wrong and we're idiots, and we can talk about that right now. I'm pretty sure I had this pick for the ALCS, but I think I had a different team in the World Series. But the Rangers beat the Astros in 7 games. I know Jeff Passan sent out the Astros are inevitable like a week or 2 ago, and then he just quote tweeted it with I guess not this year. Rangers really destroyed the Astros in Game 7 too. Did you get a chance to watch that one?
I did.
Nice.
They got absolutely destroyed. Yeah, I was definitely rooting for the Rangers the whole time.
Oh yeah,
but sure. there is always that part of you, that wants to be right. I predicted Phillies Astros in the World Series rematch. I had the Phillies winning, obviously wrong on every single part of that, but I did expect the Astros to come out of this, especially after they even after they went down 2-0 in the series, because so few teams have come back from 2-0 in a best of 7 series since 2000. Just 2 teams had done so since 2000. It was the 2020 Dodgers against the Braves in the NLCS, and it was the 2004 Red Sox against the Yankees in the 2004 ALCS. So those are some pretty damn good teams, and the Astros are a pretty damn good team, and they proved that by not only coming back from 2-0 but going up 3-2, winning 3 games in a row, all in Texas. Obviously every single game there was played in the state of Texas, but all in the Rangers home ballpark. And yeah, it was pretty incredible, and I really thought once they were up 3-2 going back home, all they had to do was win one more, and I thought that, pretty easy for them to do so. But every home team lost the games. The away team won every single game, just like we saw in the 2019 World Series. with the Nationals and obviously the Astros again. So they're a team that really, unfortunately, for them, doesn't play well in their home ballpark. But yeah, I think that was a really interesting storyline to watch there. But oh my God, the MVP was crazy.
Yeah, he was. Did you see the stats too? Like the Astros, like home struggles were a thing all year. They were
Yeah,
a
yeah.
much worse team at home, which is
Hmm.
so weird because you figure their team's constructed outside of like Jordan and Kyle Tucker. Most of their hitters are righties, and a lot of them like kind of get helped by the Crawford boxes, and then
Yep.
they suck at Minute Maid. Like it's kind of crazy.
And then after
Uh,
like 2017 with like the banging scheme and stuff, like you
like
figured
yeah.
like that stuff's gonna carry over. Like if they are still cheating, they're gonna be good at home. But clearly,
Mhm. Maybe they're trying to throw everyone off the trail and they're cheating away from home.
that's
And
what I
that's
was
why they're
thinking
doing good.
too. Because they're winning
Maybe.
so much in Texas in the Rangers ballpark.
That's
It's
true.
not that far away from home. It would not be too obscene to think that, they have some secret agents there.
They got some dude like in the outfield with camcorders, like he's throwing a
They
curveball,
they
he's throwing a
did that.
curveball.
Somebody did that. Was that the Red Sox? Somebody did that where
I
they were
don't
like
remember who
looking
that
into
was.
somebody else's dugout. I mean, the technology is so crazy nowadays. You could do anything and nobody would be surprised.
That's so goofy. Honestly, just kind of like the stat line of the MVP that we can get back on topic talking about. Adolis Garcia is the Astros' daddy until next year, at least, potentially forever.
Yeah, it was. He was absolutely crazy, just continuing to hit home run after home run. He had 4 straight games with a home run and finished with 5 in that 4 straight games because he hit 2 in the clinching game, which was crazy because I didn't watch the end of that game because once it was out of reach, I was with friends and they don't like baseball. So I was like, okay, Rangers are going to win. So I tuned out. And when I was watching the replay of the game, I saw him come up to bat for like the 4th time and hit another home run. And I was like, oh my God, that's so crazy for him to do that. I think he's got 7 home runs in the postseason right now. He set the American League record for RBI in a postseason series. Just an absolutely bonkers series for and postseason for Adolis Garcia. And I think the craziest part is like that first home run he had where he like trotted down the line and maybe that was the second home run. But he trotted down the line and like sort of made a big deal about it. That's what he does. El Bombi, he does that. And the Astros took offense to that, threw at him and made him the enemy of the Astros. And the home crowd definitely leaned into that. They were booing him so loud whenever he came up in game 6 and 7. And he leaned into it. I mean, even in game 6, when he struck out like 4 times in his first 4 at bats, and then his 5th at bat, he hit a freaking grand slam. It was just like, yeah, that's when I knew. I was like, oh man, I don't know if the Astros can pull this off. And Adolis Garcia is just crazy.
Yeah, he's hit the most home runs in the postseason right now. The postseason record right now is 21, so he needs 2 more to have the all-time postseason RBI record. Do you remember who that is?
George Springer.
David Freese, 21 in
Uh
2011. He needs 2 more. Fuzzy on YouTube. If you don't watch him, you should. He's pretty good. There are 2 players in the history of baseball ever that have 7 home runs and 20 RBIs in a single postseason. Both of them play for the Rangers now. Adolis Garcia
yeah,
and Corey
Nelson
Seager.
Cruz. And
Corey
Nelson
Seager.
Cruz had a big postseason in the past as well.
Yeah. It's just crazy. He really kind of just flashed a huge middle finger to the Astros as soon as like they just started to throw at him and sort of really try to play with him. And he just kind of like, okay, anyway,
Yeah.
I'm going to trash y'all now.
It
And he
was so
did.
sick. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
he did. Super
he's
sick.
such a fun player to watch.
He is.
Do you
I really
want
like that
to go quickly game by game?
guy. Sure.
All right.
I have to pull up the game results, but I can.
All right. Well, I can open it up with game 1 in Houston. The Rangers won 2-0. Jordan Montgomery pitched a gem, pitching into the 7th, not allowing a run and striking out 6th. And the bullpen, Spores, Chapman, and Leclerc came in to shut it down. I think that was their 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th win in a row to start the postseason. And the Astros only were able to get 5 hits in that one, all singles. And Justin Verlander pitched pretty well, pitched into the 7th, but it wasn't good enough. All thanks to the Leody Taveras home run that really was the big blow in that one in the 5th inning.
Yeah. Keep it rolling. I'm still pulling up the schedule.
Sure. And then game 2, the Rangers took that one 5-4. This was also in Houston. The Rangers in that one had a home run from Jonah Heim. They jumped out to an early 4-0 lead and were able to hold on for the rest of the game. Nathan Eovaldi tossed 6 innings. He allowed 3 runs, but he did strike out 9. And then the bullpen, Spores, Chapman, and Leclerc, what a surprise, were able to hold it down. Leclerc got the final 4 outs in that one, and he actually set a couple of records. He closed out all 7 of their games to that point, setting a new MLB record for the longest streak to begin a postseason. And he's also the first pitcher in postseason history to finish off his team's first 7 games of a postseason. And the prior longest such streak was 2017 Kenley Jansen, who did so across the first 6. And on the Astros side, they got a couple home runs. They had 2 from Yordan Alvarez and 1 from Bregman. And as much as we talk about Adolis Garcia being bonkers, Yordan Alvarez is the best hitter in baseball, and like changed my mind. Put the meme up where it's the stupid conservative guy at the table, and it's just like Yordan Alvarez is the best hitter in baseball. Changed my mind. He's unstoppable.
Yeah, I really don't think there's much of a debate at this point. He hits literally everything. It got to the point where they almost just couldn't throw to him because he'd either hit a home run or get on base regardless.
Did you see that?
He had 20 hits. He hit 465 in postseason.
Did you see that at bat of him versus Eovaldi where he just like threw 2 balls and they just walked him? There wasn't even an open bag. There was a runner on first. It's like,
there you go, man.
And then they showed the stats of him versus Eovaldi, and he had like a 7.15 average against him.
That's so stupid.
It's crazy. And what's so cool about him is like, obviously he's got some of the biggest power in baseball. I feel like he could hit a home run on any pitch, but also he's just such a good contact hitter. He strikes out like 18% of the time. He consistently bats well over 300. Like you said, he batted well over 400 in this 7-game series and throughout the whole postseason. And he's so incredible. If he just like didn't get injured as often as he does, he's yet to play more than 150 games in a season. He would just have an MVP type season. And he was actually, I don't know if you saw some of the instances where he was running the bases. He's faster than I thought he was. He's not a base stealer, but he was moving for a guy of his size.
Yeah, you kind of typically look at him and you think that like he's like a big lumbering dude, kind of like an Nelson Cruz, and he's not.
Run like Giancarlo Stanton.
He's actually for real. He's actually gotten a little bit better too, to the point where they were using him in the outfield a little bit this season, and that was despite like him having like I think he had a foot injury at one point. I know he wasn't in my fantasy lineup for like a month. Thanks, Yordan, bum. But still, like shout out to Yordan. Just absolutely nuts at baseball.
Yep. And then the series transitioned to the Rangers home ballpark, and the Astros took game 3, 8-5. That was a home run from Altuve in when did he hit that? The 3rd inning. That was their only home run, but Christian Javier shut down the lineup and the bullpen was able to hang on. Brian Abreu allowed a run in that game, and that was like his first run he allowed since June, which was pretty wild. He really went on a streak, and the Rangers did all they could, but Josh Young's 2 home runs weren't enough to carry them because Max Scherzer got blown the F up. He allowed 5 runs in 4 innings, and that was I don't know. He's really starting to look like he's not the legend that he was for the last few years. He's still going to make the Hall of Fame, but he is definitely looking his age finally.
Definitely. We'll talk about it in a little bit with the game 7. He was a starter for game 7, but he really did not look all that great this season, like this series. Kind of a heart attack on the mound at points for sure.
Yeah. And then game 4, the Astros took this one handily, 10-3. Jose Abreu hit a home run. Chas McCormick hit a home run. It was really a slugfest for them. They really didn't need to count on Jose Urquidy too much. He only pitched a couple innings, but Andrew Heaney pitching for the Rangers didn't even survive the 1st inning. And that was sort of the death note right there. Adolis Garcia started his home run streak in that game, and Corey Seager hit one too. But that game, I don't think there's much to talk about in that one, just because the Astros just flat out destroyed the Rangers.
Definitely. So we can just go on and talk about game 5 a little bit closer.
Yep. Game 5, final game in Texas. The Astros won 5-4. That was the big one where Altuve did what he has done countless numbers of times, and he hit a home run and in the ninth inning, a 3-run shot to give them a 1-run lead. It was huge. Justin Verlander started in that one, and he was not great. He's also looking much older, and the Rangers started with Jordan Montgomery, but as soon as they took him out, Spores and Chapman were able to hold it, but Jose Leclerc, looking to close out his 8th game in a row, was unable to do so, even with Nate Lowe and Adolis Garcia hitting home runs in that one. The legendary Jose Altuve did it again.
Yeah. Where does Jose Altuve's like Hall of Fame resume stand right now? Because he's making a case for probably the best postseason hitter ever, and if not, at least of this generation. In addition to having like an outside chance at being like close to a 3,000 hit guy, like he's sort of looking like a Hall of Famer for sure. I don't know, like, well, he's going to be a Hall of Famer, but I don't know, like, if he's going to get the case up to the point where he's like in the argument for best at his position, because second base in terms of hitters is still extremely light, like historically. Like, where do you think that this kind of moves him up
in terms of like all-time second base ranks?
Yeah, because I mean, like the postseason success, he has the most hits in postseason history now, doesn't he? Or most. It's like he had like the most of something in the postseason.
He's like one away from the most home runs.
That sounds right.
I'm trying to pull up Jaws to see who are the best guys right now.
Yeah, he has like, I think he's like 2 or 3 off of Manny.
Right now, in terms of Jaws, he's 22nd, and the top 5 is Rogers, Hornsby, Eddie Collins, Snap Lajoie. No,
those guys didn't play when
Joe Morgan and Charlie Gehringer. I don't think he's better than Joe Morgan.
He's definitely not better than Joe Morgan.
And I there's a case for Rod Carew. I mean, he's still got a lot of career left, but yeah, I mean, this is just for regular season. So I think with the postseason exploits, he's definitely top 10. And you're right, second base is very shallow. Obviously, Jackie Robinson and like Ryan Sandberg are there, but he's like top 10. He may be pretty close to top 5 second baseman all time, depending on how the rest of his career goes.
Depending on how you also value dudes that played before they would let black people play.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so that one definitely cemented it. I saw a meme there where it was just like Chapman like looking at Jose Leclerc and being like, first time, because he's so familiar with giving up big bombs to Altuve. But then it went back to Houston for game 6, and the Rangers just completely manhandled the Astros there. That was the grand slam in the 9th inning that Adolis Garcia hit. Nathan Eovaldi, great again. The bullpen locked it down, and the Astros, they just weren't able to hit enough. They had only 6 hits in that one. They scored just 2 runs. And that forced a game 7 where, the Rangers just sort of ran away with it. That's fresh on everybody's minds right now, but Adolis Garcia hit a couple more home runs. Max Scherzer didn't survive the 3rd inning, but Jordan Montgomery came out of the bullpen, which I love seeing the aces come out of the bullpen in those deciding games. And even though the Astros had 12 hits, they were only able to score 4 runs. And, it was mostly just Christian Javier only getting 1 out in that 1st inning. That sort of set the stage for the Rangers to pull away with that one pretty easily.
Yeah, I also really love seeing the starters come out of the pen. It feels like the moment's huge, like when that happens. Like it feels like that's always like a game 7 or something, like a starter on short rest come out of the bullpen to get like, I don't know, 3 outs just in a pinch. Like just feels so sick. Like I love that. Jordan Montgomery was nails in this series too. He's been really good for the Rangers since they traded for him after being pretty mid with the Cardinals during the regular season.
Yeah.
Is he penciled in as the game 1 starter? Do you know?
I think probably not, but I could see him pitch game 2 just because he pitched game 7 and then they only have 2 days off. I think they would probably likely want to wait until game 2 and maybe even game 3 just to give him like an extra 2 more days of rest, but I could definitely see him getting back out there for game 2 because he tossed just 2 1/3 innings.
Fair.
Yeah. And then, that's that one. Rangers won. I think a lot of people are happy with that. They are one of the few teams that have yet to win a World Series. So they'll definitely be one of the teams that a lot of people are rooting for. They're a very fun team to watch, super powerful, with a couple great starters and a very, very iffy bullpen, and that makes for exciting games.
Yeah, completely and totally agree. And we can go ahead and talk about the NLCS, which I think was a little bit of a different animal.
Oh man, I mean that one was crazy too because the Phillies did the same thing the Rangers did, and they jumped out to a 2-0 lead, and it really just felt like a formality for to play the rest of those games because the Phillies were just looking so strong that whole postseason, and then things really turned. I think it was Game 3 when they were about to, or maybe it was Game 4. We'll go through all of them, but they were about to like close out a game, and they let them come back late in that one, and that I think gave the D-backs life, and they were able to come through. And it really, I don't know what it was, but it like the D-backs felt pretty underwhelming throughout the whole series. They never felt like they
Mhm.
were overwhelming the Phillies with how good they were. It felt like the Phillies bats just sort of fizzled out, and they're a very streaky bunch, like a bunch of home run hitting guys that strike out a lot. And that seemed
Mhm.
like down the stretch, they just were unable to hit. Nick Castellanos, I don't think, had a hit for the whole series. And, everything really, they weren't able to do anything. And credit to the D-backs starters, and their relievers were actually very impressive, and for their offense to come through and just put up a few runs, that was enough. But yeah, there wasn't really anybody that was sort of making me feel like, oh man, the D-backs are going to be a tough team to beat in the World Series. It just felt like the Phillies sort of beat themselves.
Definitely. They didn't score more than 6 runs in any of the 7 games um, against the Phillies. And honestly, like outside of Ketel Marte, nobody in their lineup really went crazy. Like they just
Corbin
kind
Carroll
of,
was good. He just didn't hit
yeah,
home
he was
runs.
fine. Yeah, he was fine. I mean, but for this, I mean, for the series, he still had like a 260, like a 267 on base, and he struck out like a pretty decent amount of times.
Hmm.
Uh, and he had no extra base hits either. He's just getting on base and getting
Hmm.
steals, which still good. Like don't get me wrong, but it kind of felt like they were underwhelming. Like, and specifically, like Christian Walker was terrible. Like he didn't really
Hmm.
do much of anything, and that's the one huge bat they have in their lineup that's not like Cattell or Corbin Carroll. Like their best power was like Alec Thomas, which
Yeah, I
was
mean that
weird.
we'll talk about that one. But MVP of the series was Ketel Marte, and he, while he had a very solid series and had some very clutch hits, I think his biggest claim to fame is that he set the record for the longest postseason hitting streak to start a postseason career. So this was his first postseason. He got a hit in every single game of the postseason, broke Marquise Grissom's record. And that was really cool, especially to do so in one postseason. And now I think he's one game. I think he's at 17 games, and the record for longest hitting streak just in general in the postseason is Derek Jeter with 18. And so he's one game off of that, of tying that record. So that'll be something interesting to watch. But yeah, he was very consistent. This has been one of the longest tenured members of that team. I think he's the highest paid player on the team outside of the released Madison Bumgarner, which is something in and of
He could
itself.
get a
But
ring this year.
well, hey, for Giants fans, it's either Mad Bum gets a ring or Bruce Bochy gets a ring. So we're winning no matter what.
Sick.
But yeah, that was really cool. We can go through all of the games. Game 1, Phillies won 5-3. They were helped by just a home run right off the bat from Kyle Schwarber. Bryce Harper hit a home run, and Nick Castellanos hit a home run. I was wrong when I said he didn't get any hits in the series. There was a stretch where he went like 0 for 22 though. But the bats were there. They hit the home run. Zach Wheeler, one of the best postseason pitchers of all time. I think he's got the lowest whip ever by a starter in the postseason. There's some like innings minimum there, but he is incredible, and the bullpen was able to lock it down. While the D-backs didn't do much, and Zach Gallen sort of got roughed up right from the start.
Yeah, he has the lowest whip like in playoff history, which is crazy because he started the series and they and it was already the lowest, and he managed to lower it even more. Like, man, you've
I
got to
love
be
Zach
kidding me.
Wheeler. Yeah,
I do too. He's so good.
he's been on my fantasy team in our home league for 3 straight years. So I've been a Kyle Wheeler stan for a while.
Zach,
Um, but
Zach
that set
Wheeler.
up a game 2 for the Phillies to win 10-0, and it really felt done then. They got 2 homers from Kyle Schwarber, 1 from Trey Turner. Aaron Nola, who's been really great in his postseason career and is really setting up himself to be paid pretty handsomely in this offseason. He pitched 6 shutout innings, allowing just 3 hits. The bullpen shut it down, and the D-backs were just like not there offensively, and it didn't really matter how good or bad Merrill Kelly was in the rest of that bullpen. And from there, they had been outscored 15-3 in the first 2 games.
Yeah, this one was kind of like the big moment for me watching it. It was kind of like, okay, well, let's go ahead and call it. And I think almost everyone did too. I know known baseball knower Colin Cowherd was like, go ahead in LCS, bow down to your Phillies overlords or whatever. But like still at that point, it genuinely looked done and dusted. It was like, okay, yeah, the Diamondbacks, you had a good run, buddy. But like, I think the Phillies are just gonna give you a little smack and send you on your way. Like,
yeah, at first inning of game 1, I said Phillies are done for, or D-backs are done for. Like as soon as I saw Schwarber hit that home run, I was like, D-backs are done for. And that sort of became a meme in my one of my group chats where just people would like, it's like game 7 and they're just like, oh, D-backs are done for. And I was just like, oh man, I'm getting memed on. But on the note of your Colin Cowherd comment, the Mad Dog Russo, I mean, this obviously happened later on, but heading into game 6 and 7 in Citizens Bank Park, he mentioned he would retire if the D-backs won the series. And guess what? They won the series, and now everyone just wants him to retire. And it's so funny because he's either going to do something really stupid that nobody cares about to like use as something else in place of that, or he's going to actually retire and everyone's going to be super pumped because that guy stinks.
Yeah, for real. It's never going to happen. He's just blowing smoke.
No, he's making so much money. Yeah.
Oh yeah, for real.
Yeah.
But that one was crazy.
Yeah.
God.
Game 3, the D-backs won 2-1, and that was a tight one because the Phillies took the lead in the 7th inning and then blew it in the bottom of the 7th, and then bottom of the 9th, the D-backs got a walk-off hit from Ketel Marte, and that was sort of one of the big reasons why he was the MVP. But I think the biggest story in this one was Brandon Pfaadt coming alive, 5 2/3 scoreless innings, just allowed 2 hits while striking out 9. The rest of the bullpen was able to hang on, and that Phillies offense really started to shut down. They had 3 hits in the entire game. Ranger Suarez, who is also an incredible postseason performer, pitched well, 5 1/3 scoreless innings, but the bullpen was unable to hang on. Orion Kirkring, the rookie, gave up a run in that bottom of the 7th inning. Craig Kimbrell gave up the walk-off hit in the bottom of the 9th, and that sort of felt like one of the turning points because little did we know at that point that would be the start of the Phillies lineup sort of falling apart. But there was stuff there because they were unable to make contact.
Yeah, this also kind of started a continuing trend for the rest of the series where the Phillies bullpen that we talked about so much getting the job done started to not really do that. Cracks started to show. And then another thing that we talked about too, in the wild card series, I very specifically remember, I don't know if you said it, but I know I said it, and I look like a complete dum-dum because I said, like, the Diamondbacks, their playoff rotation is like, okay, it's fine. Like, Merrill Kelly's decent, Gallen, good. And then we said, like, who's the third starter that they're going to have to try to rely on? Like Brandon Pfaadt, because he sucked during the regular season, let's be honest. Like, he was decent after he got demoted and came back, but it still wasn't like for real. Like, it still wasn't even like anything to write home about. He really did come alive. 5 2/3, 9 strikeouts against the Phillies lineup. Kind of really, really threw a wrench into things. And we'd see Brandon Pfaadt a little bit later too. When we talk about that. Got to move on.
I mean, the caveat of him facing the Phillies, I think, is the biggest point there.
The craziest thing
in the championship series. Yeah.
Yeah. The most dangerous lineup he could have probably faced at all in the postseason.
Exactly.
And just unfaced.
So then we move to game 4, which is where I think things really turned because the Diamondbacks got up to an early 2-0 lead through 3 innings. And then the Phillies roared back with 5 runs across the next 4 innings. So they were up 5-2 heading into the bottom of the 7th. They allowed a run. It was 5-3. And then they headed into the 8th with the lead. And once again, Craig Kimbrell blew it, gave up a 3-run shot to Alek Thomas, who became a surprising postseason legend as he hit that 3-run shot to give the D-backs the lead. And I think that swing right there was the switch in the series, because from then on, it was really like, I mean, obviously the Phillies bounced back the next game. We'll get there, but that was huge, especially because this was a game the D-backs, I think, in my opinion, had to win or they would have lost the series, because they were going with their bullpen game. This was like the chance for the Phillies to go up 3-1, beat them while the D-backs were resting their starters, and they were able to hold on for that win with just tons of pitchers pitching, and that huge home run from Alek Thomas. But the Phillies bullpen was unable to hang on, and that was I think that's when everything turned. But that home run by Alek Thomas was so sick.
Yeah, it was. That was a huge moment. And the craziest thing, like, again, I'm going to talk about the Phillies bullpens, like the guys that we sort of expected to be the big names in the bullpen, like the guys that have closed games for real, like major league teams. In Craig Kimbrell's case, like he's one of the best closers.
Real major league teams?
Oh, I don't know. Do you really count the Tigers as a real major league team? Because Greg Soto had all of his saves with the Tigers. But like Gregory Soto's closed games at like the big league level. Craig Kimbrell obviously has done that. He's one of the best closers ever. And then Jose Alvarado. And then the two that were awful in your bullpen are Craig Kimbrell and Gregory Soto this series. Like, and Craig Kimbrell kind of chief among them. What was the year the Red Sox won it, where they won, and every single time that he pitched, he was just a complete nightmare. Like, when did they win the World Series?
Must have been like, what was it, 2018? Was that year?
That sounds right. It's like they won the World Series, and he was just awful the entire time.
Yeah.
Like, that guy's just not, for whatever reason it is, he's just not.
And he was an all-star this year, but the second half for him, and then he just lost his command. You could see when he was out there, he didn't have control over where he was throwing the ball, and that was huge, because it really limited what was a really strong bullpen. Yeah, exactly. Because he's a very like mechanical pitcher in that he relies super heavily on his mechanics being perfect, and when they're not, he can't control his pitches, and his stuff a lot of the time can help him get away with that. But in this case, Alek Thomas put a really good swing on it. Have you watched a lot of Alek Thomas? That guy's swing is crazy.
Yeah, it is. I actually haven't watched much of him, but getting to see it for the first few times, I don't watch very many Diamondbacks games. Like I'm not a West Coast guy, so their games are on like when I'm going to bed most of the time. Like it's the first like real exposure I got to actually watch like Alek Thomas play. Like his swing is really crazy.
Yeah, I mean, he just like he does a lot with his hands up top, and then he like when he unloads his hips, he moves away from the plate too to get like more leverage to bring his hands through the zone. And it looks like so much. Like I don't know how he doesn't just swing at everything with a load like that. But when he does connect, for a small guy that's known more for being a fielder, when he does connect, he's able to hit the ball pretty dang far. But we'll move on to Game 5, where the Phillies bounce back. They won 6-1 pretty handily. Schwarber hit another home run. Harper hit a home run. Real Muto hit a home run. And Zach Wheeler was at his best, tossing 7 innings. And the D-backs did not do much. They had 8 hits, but they scored just 1 run, again, on an Alek Thomas home run. But Zach Gallen, who has been really underwhelming after being one of the best pitchers in baseball over the past few years, really underwhelmed in the postseason thus far, 5.24 ERA. This game for me gave me the hope that the Phillies would, because I was rooting for the Phillies. I thought this was the game where they got their mojo back, and that they would, heading back to Citizens Bank Ballpark with a 3-2 lead. I thought they had it in the bag, because I mean, so did Mad Dog Russo, obviously, but they not only have a great record at home in recent seasons, but they have the best home record in the history of the postseason in that ballpark. The home field advantage there is crazy. The fans get super loud, and this was a huge talking point, but it somehow did not scare the Diamondbacks.
Yeah, and that's a huge story that really never wavered. We'll talk about Game 7 here in a second, but do you ever see like the bit from Game 7 where they literally showed like the thing like measuring the sound, where it was like 100 or whatever decibels, like that's crazy. It's one of the most intense environments you could go into. And it's a super young team. We talked about like I picked the Orioles to make the World Series from the AL side, and we talked a little bit about the young team that just hasn't been there before, sort of crumbling under the bright lights. And the Diamondbacks just did the opposite. It's an 84 win team with a bunch of young guys and guys that have never really played in the postseason before, just being ready for it. And they really showed it. It's really, really great on that end. And they just kind of came up, handled business. And I remember Tori Lavilla's quote before kind of sticks with me, because I thought, like, okay, if anything, like this might be some bulletin board material you can give the Phillies. But he specifically said, we didn't come all this way to get our asses kicked. And they definitely didn't.
So. Yeah. And you're right. They really rose to the task. I mean, game 6, they took it pretty easily thanks to a great pitching performance from Merrill Kelly across 5 innings and a couple home runs. Tommy Pham and Lourdes Gurriel Jr. But I think the biggest thing here was they started stealing bases. They stole 4 bases in this one. They would do that again in game 7. This is a team that I think stole the second most bases in baseball during the regular season, and they had not stolen throughout the whole postseason. They had stolen bases here and there, but they weren't a team that was taking advantage of their speed. And they really started to do that across game 6 and 7. And that was the difference. And you also saw the Phillies offense fall apart. They had just 1 extra base hit in game 6. They had just 6 hits total. And Aaron Nola finally fell apart, but it still felt like they had a shot going into game 7.
Yeah, I wonder what really changed with their approach for it. Honestly, it feels like they're just kind of like, oh, well, maybe being a little bit too conservative when they were on base, just because, like I said, I mean, it's a young team, don't want to make mistakes and don't want to take yourself out of the game that way. They probably just like, oh, well, whatever. Just go steal a bag. Go figure it out. Just go for that.
They're also facing like JT Realmuto. So there is that like intimidation factor of he's one of the best defensive catchers in baseball.
That too. But like still, I mean, there were several steals that they took on the pitcher. Like they took, I think Corbin Carroll had 1 or 2 that he stole on a throw over. Like you have guys he's extremely fast. But they have a lot of guys that are fast. Yeah. Like Alec Thomas is pretty fast. Ketel Marte is not the slowest dude in the world. Like they have
Geraldo Perdomo.
Perdomo. They have guys that can steal bases.
Yeah, and we'll go right to game 7. That's fresh on our minds from yesterday. That one was a really exciting game because it was so close the whole time. It was like 2-2 for a couple innings in the middle there. The D-backs took a lead pretty late. It was never 2-2. It was 3-2. They took a 4-2 lead in the 7th, but yeah, Corbin Carroll had 3 hits in that one. He stole a couple bases. Ketel Marte came through with a double as well, and that boosted his batting average to 358 in the postseason thus far. They stole 4 more bases. Brandon Pfaadt, once again, very solid, 7 strikeouts through 4. And then the bullpen was just absolutely locked down. And I think for a moment, I thought Kevin Ginkel would win the MVP award for this series, because the 5 outs he got before Paul Sewald came into that game were electric. I don't know what he was doing, but he's been super underrated as a very solid reliever this season in his first really good full season as a 29-year-old. He was a pretty top prospect reliever for a few years and never really put it together until this year. But his fastball curveball combo was deadly. And in the 8th inning, when he struck out the side against like Alec Bohm, Bryson Stott, and I think it was probably Castellanos after that, he was making them look silly. He was bouncing curveballs and they were all swinging. They couldn't stop it. And you could tell that they were getting frustrated because Bohm was the first guy up in that inning and he struck out and just like slammed his bat on the ground and broke it. But even before that, in the 7th inning, when he came on and he had to face Trey Turner and then Bryce Harper, that at bat with Bryce Harper, I think that was the deciding point in the series. Obviously they had chances across the 8th and 9th, but that with 2 outs, the go ahead run at the plate in Bryce Harper against Kevin Ginkel, that was the deciding moment, because Bryce Harper is known for his heroics and being very cinematic in terms of, coming through in the clutch. He did it last year. We all know that. And he flew out, but if he had done something more, either walked or singled or homered, as I would have loved to see, it would have changed everything. But him getting out in that moment, Ginkel coming through there, I think that was when the series was officially decided.
Yeah, I remember you sending that as soon as it happened. It's like, here, series is on the line right now. He flew out. It's like, well, there goes.
I was like counting down the at bats. I was like, I want Bryce Harper to come up here with 2 runners on base in with this 2-run lead, and just like, this is where it all comes down to. And I thought he might do it, but he did not.
Yeah, the Phillies did not come away with this one. They ended up losing this one at 4-2. And honestly, it's on the back of their bats, just completely falling apart. But you really need to give some credit to that Diamondbacks bullpen. That was really just sort of unheralded. We literally just kind of mentioned it being Paul Sewald and a bunch of guys. Like, a bunch of guys just kind of really halted any of the Phillies' momentum. And then the Phillies bullpen, on the other hand, just completely crumbled under the pressure. Yeah, guys come in and do their jobs. Ranger Suarez did really well. Like, I mean, they did their job, and he just kind of couldn't continue it from there. Just the bullpen just really did not do them any favors, but it's really not like the offense really deserved to win. If you had put up 2 runs against the Diamondbacks, it's on them at the end of the day. It really felt like after Game 6 that this series was probably over for me. I thought the Phillies would maybe have a chance, but it never felt like the bats were going to warm up again. Their bullpen was awful. Did you see the quote from Real Muto about Kimbrel?
No.
That one was something. It was, I think it was from an Athletic article, and it literally just said, there's like, right now the Phillies are just concerned about halting their momentum. Real Muto mentioned that at that point in Game 6, they had made so many mound visits that they had to try to conserve them. And by the time that Kimbrel came in, he literally just said he can't go out there that much. It's on Kimbrel. Like, he basically just said at that point, it's on him. Like, it's on himself. And Kimbrel just completely blew it again for Game 6, which was rough. And it's sort of like the same thing there. We talked about, like, the Diamondbacks offense came alive, and they didn't really do it off the back of hitting a million home runs. They did it off the back of getting guys like on base, stealing bases, and just getting a knock scoring position. I think Ketel Marte he hit like the tying run. Corbin Carroll. Perdomo was on second. All it was literally just a weak single up the middle after an easy steal. Basically, I think you could classify it almost as a defensive indifference. Just letting them take the extra bag, and it just turns into a run. And on the other hand, the Phillies went like 1 for 10 with runners in scoring, and they left 7 on base. Like, you can't really excuse that at that point. Like, your offense is full of sluggers and guys that are very good, and you're just not getting runs across. Like, y'all suck. Like, come on. Like, you ought to be able to do this against what should be perceived as, one of the pretty much the weakest team that, like, on paper, that was in the playoffs. They're going to be in the World Series now. Like, the Phillies really, really blew this one.
Yeah, they were 6th seed. The 6th seed in the National League has made the World Series 100% of the time because they implemented it last year and the Phillies made it. But that does set up a very interesting World Series matchup that I think only true baseball fans can appreciate. Obviously, you have the tweets you see every year from the guys that don't talk about baseball until the World Series comes around, and then they go, "Oh, this World Series matchup is not intriguing like baseball stinks." It's like, yeah, because you don't watch baseball and you just want it to be Yankees versus Dodgers, and that's the only one you're going to watch. And when it's Rangers versus Diamondbacks, it doesn't really matter. But they do have a point. These are two wild card teams. The Rangers are obviously a more powerful team than the D-backs. The D-backs have had one of the worst regular seasons of any team to ever make the World Series. And they had just a terrible stretch, I think, from June to August or July to August, where they had, I think, the worst record ever by a team that made the World Series. But on top of that, both of these teams lost 100 games just 2 years ago. And I think that made these teams the matchup with the fewest combined wins ever in a World Series matchup from like from 2 seasons prior, or like they had the fewest combined seasons since a 100 loss campaign for a World Series matchup. These are 2 teams that not only are unlikely to be here in the first place based on how they played this season, but based on where they were at even last year. They were both sub 500 teams, but 2 years ago, couple of the worst teams in baseball and making it all the way to the World Series. Very cool, in my opinion, to see that. I love that, like, 0 to hero factor there. But yeah, not what you would have expected, but that is how the playoffs go nowadays. But now we've got a very interesting matchup. How are you feeling about this? Who are you rooting for?
I'm rooting for the Rangers mainly just because I like the aspect of a first World Series win, where the Diamondbacks already won the one, I think in 2001. Yeah, these
That's
two
right.
teams were 102 and 222 is their combined record from 2021.
Yep.
I really like this World Series, and a bunch of people about like a bunch of chuds that are like more casual fans talk about this being like real baseball fan like World Series. I love this. And it's so sick because for me, this is like the polar opposite end of the spectrum, really, in terms of roster construction, getting you to the point where you are in contention to win a World Series. Rangers spent a lot of dollary dues to get here, whole lot of them. Diamondbacks, not so much. This is mainly off the back of their farm system. Guys that they signed for pennies on the dollar and got the most out of. Like, who's like their biggest signing, like in their lineup that's gonna be in this series? Tommy Pham, like
Yes. Well, they
Tommy
didn't even
Pham.
sign him. They traded
They
for him.
traded. They traded for him. They traded for Paul Sewald. Like the one guy on their team that makes any real like amount of money is Ketel Marte. like
Yeah, and that was the guy
and
that
like
they
Merrill
traded
Kelly.
for.
Yeah,
They didn't really. They didn't. They don't make a lot of signings on the offense. They're only like
they don't.
signings in terms of like free agents, or it was like Merrill Kelly a few years ago.
Mhm.
Everybody else,
Didn't
like you
they?
said,
Didn't they like get him for relatively cheap too? He had a
yeah, because he
decent
was
season.
coming
They
from like
and
Korea or
extended.
something.
Yeah, and they
Yeah.
extended him.
But they've been crazy with the trades though. Like if you
Yeah,
look
for
at their
real.
whole team, it's like Gabriel Moreno, he was traded for
Yeah, Navarre
uh
showed trade.
yep, exactly. They traded
Guriel
for
too. Guriel was the Navarre
Gurriel,
show
they
trade.
traded for Paul Sewald, they traded for I can't even, I'm trying to like remember the team off the top of my head. I mean, obviously they
Marte was
traded
on
for
the
Ketel Marte,
Mariners.
yeah, long time ago. Even Zach Gallen, that was the
Gallen.
Jazz Chisholm trade.
Hmm.
It's like every single big member of their team was either homegrown or acquired
Christian
in like an
Walker too.
incredible trade. Christian Walker was traded for.
Orioles.
Yeah. So they've been so successful with trading. Got to hand it to Mike Hazen, who's the president of baseball ops there. But yeah, it's crazy how they put their team sort of together with huge trades and some pretty good player development, but mostly the trades there. And then the Rangers, a lot of people are trying to say like, oh, spending a lot of money, like it doesn't work in baseball. It's like, all right, the
Yeah, it
Rangers
definitely
spent the
does.
most money the last 2 years. They signed Corey Seager, Marcus Semien, Nathan Eovaldi. They traded for Max Scherzer and who makes a lot of money.
They traded for
They
Jordan
they
Montgomery.
they signed Jacob DeGrom. They made a lot of additions. They signed or they traded for Aroldis Chapman, but it was
Mitch
mostly like
Garver traded
the
for.
big signings. Yeah, they made some good trades, but I think it was mostly the big signings of Seager,
Mhm.
Semien, DeGrom, and Eovaldi that got them there. Obviously, DeGrom's not there. Imagine if he was there, they would be
Yeah, game one
pretty
starter.
incredible.
Game one starter.
Yeah.
Jacob DeGrom and Madison Bumgarner.
Yeah, but
What a series!
it's a pretty interesting series. I'm unsure how to go about breaking this down. Here we go. We're gonna go not position by position because that could take us probably multiple days. We'll go lineup, rotation, bullpen, debate who we think is the best setup there. We'll start with the rotation. Obviously, we've seen how these teams like to use their rotations. The Rangers will go Jordan Montgomery. We don't know the order. Jordan Montgomery, Nathan Eovaldi, Max Scherzer, and then, I don't know, Andrew Heaney and Dane Dunning in a combined game. While the D-backs will go Zach Gallen, Merrill Kelly, Brandon Pfaadt, and bullpen game is what they did last time. But they do have like Ryan Nelson and others that they could use out of the bullpen. Who do you think is the stronger contingent there?
I think just off the back of like, it seems so even, really, just based on the
Because they're
performances that
both
we've seen.
bad.
Yeah, they're both ass. So like
They have
the
two good guys and everyone else sucks.
well, the performances from Fott have been really good too, though.
Well, that's the thing. It's like they have like that X factor third starter where it's like Fott is a
Mhm.
young guy. He's unproven, but he does have the ability to go off. And then Max Scherzer sort of on the opposite end, but in the same boat where
He's an
he's just like
old
he's an X
bum,
factor.
but
He's
maybe
an
he
old
could get it
bum.
done.
He's an old bum. He's unreliable, but he does have a history of not only pitching really great for his whole career, but also in the postseason when it matters most.
I don't know. I'm going to go with the Rangers. I'm going to go with the Rangers because Nathan Eovaldi is my favorite baseball player that's ever lived.
That's fair. I will agree, mostly because Jordan Montgomery and Nathan Eovaldi have been much better in the postseason than Gallen and Kelly.
Dog.
Yeah, but Gallen just hasn't been there this postseason,
That's
and
true.
I think that's the biggest thing for me is I think he's the best of the bunch in terms of who's the best starter during the regular season or over the past couple of seasons. It's Gallen for me, but he just hasn't really delivered, and that uncertainty there leads me to go with the Rangers.
Yeah, a little cool fun fact too on this. This is the first time ever that the road team won a Game 7 in both the ALCS and NLCS.
Wild. Oh, and we also have our 23rd straight year of parity as the Astros. We won't have a repeat champion since the Yankees from 1999 to 2000, which I love. That's one of my favorite things. That's what I root for every year. We'll go to the bullpen now. This one I think is pretty easy. The Rangers back end is Jose Leclerc, Aroldis Chapman, Josh Sborz, and obviously Will Smith, who's fallen off a lot. And then they have some long relief guys that used to be in the rotation that they can trust on. And the D-backs have Paul Sewald, Kevin Ginkel, Joe Mantiply, Andrew Saalfrank, a bunch of dudes. I'll go first on the reliever dude. It's D-backs by far.
Yeah, it's the D-backs by a mile. I like Leclerc. Chapman's a bum. And Josh Sborz, he's been fine, but I mean, he's kind of he's decent. He's kind of the contingent, I don't know, maybe Mantiply at best, really. So yeah, the
Mantiply is a former All-Star, so don't
true.
talk on my man like that.
Josh Sborz sucks then.
Well, I like Josh Sborz.
Yeah, I did too. I had him in fantasy for a while. I think the D-backs spins a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, just Paul Sewald and Kevin Ginkel, they have not allowed a run this whole postseason. Paul Sewald, obviously former All-Star, one of the best closers in baseball, and just having that lockdown guy at the end of the bullpen. I think that's one of the most interesting things from this season. I think we've seen the resurgence of the closer, not just in the postseason, but during the regular season, is teams are really starting to realize it's not just about getting that save number. It's about having a guy that can handle that in the ninth. There's something about blowing the lead in the ninth inning. Obviously you want setup guys that can get you through the seventh and eighth in a close game, but having that guy in the ninth being able to close it down, especially in the postseason where it's you turn to Paul Sewald in the ninth and you're like, game over, baby. This one's done for me. You go to Craig Kimbrell or Jose Leclerc and you're like, I don't know. Anything could happen right now. But when you have Paul Sewald or somebody else that you can trust that's super dominant, I think we're seeing the return of the closer.
Tori Lavulo, it's time for Paul Sewald.
I tried to explain that meme on my bullpen podcast without with having only seen it once
so much.
And it's just audio format. And I was just explaining it, and I was just that was awful.
It's more on that note. The funniest thing, and I love the point you made. That's such a good point because it's all right. The closer role literally is so much more important. We've had all the nerd talk. We're a nerd podcast. Let's be honest, we're nerds. We talked about you want your best relievers to be in your highest leverage spots and all this stuff. And it's literally we saw that with the Phillies. They tried to trust all their contingents of all-star closers, your Alvarados and your Craig Kimbrells and your Gregory Sotos and whoever in just big spots with runners on. Just throw one of them out there and hope it works. Nah, the Diamondbacks stuck to the script. This guy's going to pitch at this specific spot, and he's going to get this many outs. Yeah. And then Paul Sewald is going to come in the ninth inning, and he's never going to give up a run, and he's never really going to give up a base runner either. He didn't struggle or labor at all. I think he gave up he gave up a double to Kyle Schwarber and then stranded him. I think that was the only thing that he's given up the entire time in the postseason.
It's the mental aspect of knowing when you're going to pitch.
Yeah. The ninth inning is time for Paul Sewald to pitch.
So now we can compare the lineups, and I think this is about as much of a swing as the bullpens are, where the Rangers just have one of the strongest lineups in baseball, top to bottom. Obviously, at catcher, you got Jonah Heim. First base, you got Nate Lowe. Around the infield, Marcus Semien, Corey Seager, and Josh Young. In the outfield, Evan Carter, who's been so sick. And then you have Leody Taveras, Adolis Garcia, and then DH, usually Mitch Garver, sometimes Robbie Grossman. And then on the D-back, this is all from memory, I'm a sicko. Then on the D-back side, you got Gabriel Moreno, who looks like he's going to be a star of the future. Christian Walker, who's really great when he is on. Ketel Marte around the infield, Geraldo Perdomo, and usually Evan Longoria, sometimes Emmanuel Rivera. In the outfield, you got Lourdes Gurriel, Alec Thomas, Corbin Carroll, and then also Tommy Pham and Pavin Smith, who will sort of switch off there. D-backs lineup good. Rangers lineup great.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear cut. Even with all those guys on for the Diamondbacks, the Rangers lineup is a Death Star. It was the best lineup in the on the AL side by far, and it kind of remains that way. They just have star power in droves. You have Adolis Garcia hitting out of his mind. Maybe they need to send him a gift basket or something. Don't piss him off. Like be really nice to him. Maybe he'll suck now. Yeah. Everyone give him a cheer. Give him the standing ovation like the Phillies fans gave Trey Turner or something. Like, just hook him up and maybe he'll suck. And that's the only way you can really hope for it. But yeah, I think on paper the Rangers have a better team.
Yes.
Rotation.
So what's your predictions?
Diamondbacks in 4 probably. I would go Rangers. I'm going to go Rangers in 7, but I think the Diamondbacks have a real legitimate chance. It just seems to be clicking on all cylinders for them. But it's the same can kind of be said for the Rangers. It's weird because like people really want to try to like crap all over the playoff format and be like, wow, this produced the most boring, like low energy, no star power, like World Series in years. You're completely discrediting these two teams. They were wild card teams. The Rangers are 8-0 on the road. The Diamondbacks are 6-2. They swept the Dodgers. They swept the Dodgers. They swept the Brewers. The only real hiccups they had was against the Phillies, and they beat the Phillies, who were like pretty much consensus, unless somebody picked the Braves, like the best team on the NL side, like for everyone, and they beat them, and they really showed that they're for real. I think I'm going to go Rangers in 7, just because I think the lineup is eventually just going to prevail. I think they're a little more consistent than the Phillies lineup in terms of just putting the ball in play instead of relying solely on the long ball. So that's why I would want to give them the edge. But yeah, I think it's going to be the Rangers, but I don't think it's going to be freeform.
I agree. I won't Rangers or
You're breaking up real bad.
It's
Jake's disappeared into the void, but I'm pretty sure he said Rangers in 6. So that would go with both of us for the Rangers here. But it is still like pretty up in the air. The Diamondbacks are a legitimate team, and they have a lineup that can get the job done. Like we said, their bullpen's a whole lot better, and it really depends on how that's utilized as well. We talked about Paul Sewan, we talked about Kevin Ginkel, and all the names that can shut down this Death Star Rangers lineup. If he can ever get his internet to be fixed, I can hear his take on the subject just like y'all can. Oh, there he goes. While I'm waiting for him to come back, we can try to get on to somewhere else.
Don't you worry.
There he goes.
I'm still here. I don't know what happened. My Wi-Fi just connected to this. I have this extender right here.
Oh yeah. Nice.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work, but I've kept it in because it's like a night light. It's like a little blue light.
Nice.
I'm stupid because I need it not.
This is randomly connected to the extender.
It will randomly connect to it, and it doesn't work. It does not work.
Sick.
I don't know what happened. I was trying to set up some visuals to get this.
That's sick.
To have something to look at while we look over the Gold Gloves. But
it's
being
annoying. You kind of cut out. You said Rangers in 6. I want to hear your reasoning before we move on.
Yes, I did say Rangers in 6. My biggest reasoning was that you said 7, and I would like to do something a little different.
Fair.
But I think the biggest thing is that I think the Rangers are just stronger there. I mean, I would have to sort of break it down by matchups to really have more confidence in why I would say, you know, which two teams over, or like how many games I think they would be able to do it in. But anyway, I really, I don't know. I have no idea.
D-backs in 5. You can
No.
you can have your Rangers in 6 or 7, D-backs in 5. I changed my mind.
Okay. Yeah. No, I don't know. I think just like that lineup's just going to be too strong, and then I think the games that they have with their aces out there, I think are going to be too hard for the D-backs to overcome, and like even the shortcomings from their bullpen are likely just to cause them to win or to lose a couple of games. And obviously D-backs are a pretty scrappy team. They're not going to go down without a fight, but the Rangers have sort of traveled a similar path to the D-backs, as like being underdogs throughout the whole time. And I think they should be able to sort of carry the momentum that they've had from the previous series. All right, let's see if I can get this visual up for the final segment. Oop, that's not what I wanted.
The Red Sox clubhouse. It's a Diamondbacks World Series, Jerry.
Yeah, but that's the World Series. I'm always pumped for the World Series. I always forget to take work off for the World Series. And of course, they always start the games at like 5. I'm off at 5.
That's so stupid, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm off at 5. I don't get home till like 5:30, so I always miss like the first inning. And then I get home, I gotta take a shit, and I'm just like on the toilet, like watching the bottom of the first. That's probably TMI. But yeah, we got the Gold Gloves now.
Gold Gloves.
Finalists, at least.
We did it. Do you just want to run down the list, or do you want to try to give predictions? Yes or no?
I would like to give predictions.
Right,
we don't have to go super in depth. Here we go.
Let's just run through them.
All right. Here we got a visual. Give something to look at. Yeah, I would like to do more research, but at this point, it's might be a little too late. I was gonna put up a bunch of stats, but I mean, it's so hard. With Gold Glove Awards, there's like, not only are there so many different stats to look at, the stats are untrustworthy, and then you're still guessing what the voters are going to do. And you know what the voters do? Always what you're not thinking. And in not only the recent past, but in the history of voting for Gold Glove, they always consider freaking offense, which has nothing to do with it. But they're always just like, well, that guy was a better hitter. It's like, yeah, that's the other side of the ball.
Yeah, really, really smart idea.
Yeah.
Very specifically, if you want to start with catcher, you can make a wonderful argument of who is going to win it based on that.
That's the thing with catchers.
Category.
It's the biggest one, where it's like there's framing, there's throwing, there's different ways of valuing catcher defense based on whatever website you look at, and it's then there's game calling, which is nobody has any way of making a stat of game calling, and so that's really difficult. But yeah, if you want to lead this along the way, we can run through these.
Yeah, on catcher, the guy that should be winning the Gold Glove for catcher isn't even nominated, so that's really sick.
Who is that?
Cal Raleigh was the best defensive catcher in the AL this year, and I'm not going to hear anything
of what?
else. Everything.
Big dumper.
Yeah, the most innings, most defensive runs saved, second most caught stealing, second most framing runs. He was the best catcher.
Yeah.
They're going to give it to Adley Rutschman, even though he was the worst catcher defender.
Was he?
Yes, he was awful. He sucked as a defender.
That's crazy. What stats are you looking at?
Bro, did you watch him play baseball this year?
No, I did not.
He was a net negative defender.
That's wild.
He sucked. They're going to give it to him, though. I'd almost.
Yeah. I mean, as the viewers can see, Jonah Heim, Alejandro Kirk, and Adley Rutschman are the finalists. I think amongst this crew, I mean, Adley Rutschman, I think, might be the best game caller, but Jonah Heim's just incredible. Alejandro Kirk, he's good at throwing base runners out, and he's probably an underrated defensive catcher. But Jonah Heim, from what I've seen in the playoffs and what he's done throughout his career, I think he's a great framer. He's good at throwing guys out, and I think he's a good game caller. But I think Jonah Heim should win amongst this group, personally.
Yeah. I think it also depends on basically what they vote for. They're going to put offense, and honestly, a lot of the stuff for this is offense and the face value award. So that's why I'm going with Rutschman. This group, I think it's probably got to be Heim or Kirk, depending on how much you value defensive runs saved at catcher, because Kirk had the most. But fine. I'll probably go with from this group. I think it should probably be Kirk or Heim. I can't really pick between those two.
Sure.
First base.
First base, we've got Nathaniel Lowe, Ryan Mountcastle, and Anthony Rizzo. First base is really hard to be like a good defender. And why is Ryan Mountcastle on here? He has -6 outs above average, -5 defensive runs saved. His Fangraphs defensive WAR is -8.4. I think Rizzo's going to win this one, also because he's like
it's very handsome,
the perennial guy.
Yeah, he's very handsome. They should give it to him.
And he got a concussion. You know, you got to feel bad for him.
That's true.
In terms of stats, he had that's the wrong one. This is a great content. 0 defensive runs saved. And what am I looking at? Outfield. 3 defensive runs saved and 6 outs above average. Yeah, that one's pretty easy, I think, for me. Second base, we got Mauricio Dubon, Andres Jimenez, and Nico Horner. No, that does not say Nico Horner. That's Marcus Semien. I don't think Dubon's going to win. He played too much outfield to win at second base. Jimenez won last year. What do you think?
Just give it to Semien. That'd be sick. Just give it to Semien.
I'm going Jimenez. He had the 3rd most outs above average among all fielders at any position. So I'm going with him. Semien's really good, but Jimenez is, I think, the best defensive second baseman.
He hits bad. He hits bad, so it's going to be Marcus Semien, man.
We can move to third base, where we have Alex Bregman, Matt Chapman, and Jose Ramirez. Chapman is definitely the most celebrated amongst the crew. I think Bregman has really improved a lot as a third baseman, and Jose Ramirez as well. But I find it hard to believe that Chapman's gonna lose.
Yeah, kind of the same here. Difficult to really bet against him, but he was really, really bad in the second half, to be honest.
He still had 12 defensive run saves and 4 outs above average.
That's true. But even the defense sort of took like a hit in the second half. I think he was a worse defender in the second half, but it's still Matt Chapman because he's just, head and shoulders above everyone else at that position, not named Nolan Arenado in all of baseball.
Yep. And then we can move to shortstop, where we got Carlos Correa, Corey Seager, and Anthony Volpe, which is crazy because Volpe's a rookie. Corey Seager's like 6'7", and Carlos Correa is also really tall. I don't think it's going to be Seager, and I don't think it's going to be Volpe. I think it's going to be Carlos Correa. He sucked this year, but he was definitely a good defender.
I don't know, to be honest. I think Volpe's got a chance just because of the DRS. He had 16 defensive run save, which is pretty solid. I don't know what Correa's is at, to be honest. I'll probably go with Correa as well.
Correa definitely didn't have more defensive run saves than Volpe, because Volpe led American League shortstop. What is wrong with my mouth? He had a -2 defensive run save and -1 outs above average. Oh, yeah, I'm changing my mind.
I'll go with Volpe.
I'm just going to check Seager really quick. Seager had, drum roll please, 5 defensive run saves and -2 outs above average. Yeah, Volpe definitely has the stats there. We'll see how name value plays into that. But in left field, we've got Austin Hayes, Steven Kwan, and Dalton Varsho. I think Varsho won last year. He tied for 5th with 11 outs above average in the American League, and Kwan only had 9. I think this is between Quan and Varsho. I love how Quan plays baseball. But I might just go with him.
Same. Let's go with let's go with Quan. That guy's cool.
Holy moly. What am I looking at? 29 defensive run save for Dalton Varsho. What the heck? 10 outs above. Okay.
Change my mind. Let's go with Dalton Varsho.
That's crazy. Oh man. Wow. Yeah, that's pretty easy. 29 defensive run saves. That's wild. And then in center field, we got Kevin Kiermaier, Luis Robert Jr., and Julio Rodriguez. I think Kiermaier's time is done. Julio and Luis Robert are both very, very athletic. Kiermaier and Robert had 13 outs above average, and Rodriguez had 12. I feel like name value is going to go to J-Rod.
I could see that, but I think Luis Robert Jr.'s also still got a lot of name value. He's in the fancy pants picture, Jake. Let's go with I'm going to go with Luis Robert Jr. The White Sox fans deserve something nice. They can have a little Gold Glove winner.
And then in right field, we got Adolis Garcia, Kyle Tucker, and Alex Verdugo. We talked a lot about Adolis Garcia. He had 6 defensive runs saved and 2 outs above average. I think that came with 11 assists as well in the outfield. He had the most valuable throwing arm of any AL outfielder. I'll give it to Garcia to just round out his season with a ton of trophies.
Let's go with Adolis too, but I think Kyle Tucker's got a reasonable chance at it.
He's so good at robbing home runs.
He's extremely good. I feel like they've also probably snubbed Verdugo. Like I feel like Verdugo
he was really good. I mean, he's there, but we'll see with that one. And then obviously the utility award, which made its debut last year. We got Mauricio Dubon, Zach McKinstry, and Taylor Walls. McKinstry played the most positions. Taylor Walls was mostly an infielder, but I think Dubon was the best fielder of the bunch, playing center field and second base a lot. I'll probably give it to him, despite him becoming one of the players that I'm not a huge fan of because of how much he dissed the Giants.
I originally said Taylor Walls before the podcast. He has 6 outs above average, negative 6 outs above average in 3 positions. How is he on this list? They just need some other guy. That's crazy. Let's go with Dubon. I like that guy.
All right, and then pitcher, we got Jose Barrios, Sonny Gray, and Pablo Lopez. All 3 guys that have played for the Twins. Gray and Lopez currently teammates on the Twins. I have no idea how you're supposed to judge pitching. I don't know. Flip a coin. Flip a 3-sided coin. Give me Jose Barrios.
Sonny Gray.
All right. Then I'll go back to Pablo Lopez and I'll say him too. They all get it. They got to share it. So we can go to the National League now. Yeah. National League started off at catcher. This one's really interesting because it's catcher, makes it interesting by itself. But you got some great options here in Patrick Bailey, Gabriel Moreno, JT Realmuto. Moreno probably had one of the best arms in baseball. He was huge in terms of like Baseball Reference defensive stats. JT Realmuto, one of the best game callers and framers. And Patrick Bailey, the rookie, came up and was just absolutely elite, throwing out base runners, saving runs behind the plate and stuff. I'd go for Patrick Bailey, and that's not even like a homer take.
It's not a homer take for me either because I don't like the Giants. They're not my favorite team. But I think Patrick Bailey should probably get this. Saber had him leading every other catcher in all of baseball for their defensive metrics. So I would go with Patrick Bailey.
All right, and then first base, this one's probably the easiest one out of all of the ones that we have talked about. Freddie Freeman, Carlos Santana, and Christian Walker. Freeman's great. Carlos Santana, surprisingly solid. But Christian Walker is like the best defensive first baseman by a long shot. Moving to both his right and left, he's incredible, and he throws the ball pretty well for a first baseman. He gets it for me. I think the stats there: 9 defensive runs saved, 12 outs above average, and that's as a first baseman.
Yeah, let's go with potential World Series champion Christian Walker.
And then at second base, we got Nico Horner, Ha-Seong Kim, and Bryson Stott. All of these guys, great defenders. Nico, all of them moving from shortstop as well after playing there last year. Bryson Stott really has impressed me in the postseason. Nico Horner was great on my fantasy team all year. But Ha-Seong Kim was like one point
He's
led
going to
the
win the
National League
Platinum
in WAR.
Glove. So
Yeah, he at one
he's
point led the
probably
National
gonna
League
get it.
in WAR, which is crazy because this is a league that had Mookie Betts and Ronald Acuna, and this was obviously Baseball Reference WAR, but I think Ha-Seong Kim takes this one.
Yeah, I think he's going to win the Platinum Glove, so I think he's obviously going to win the Gold Glove here.
And then third base, we got Ke'Bryan Hayes, Ryan McMahon, and Austin Riley. I don't know how Austin Riley made this list. 0 outs above average. McMahon was a finalist, I think, the past 2 years. But Ke'Bryan Hayes has just been waiting for Nolan Arenado to get off this list because he is by far the best fielding third baseman.
I'm going to go with Ryan McMahon. That's my
What are
guy.
you looking at?
That's my guy.
17 outs above average for Hayes, 11 for McMahon, 21 defensive runs saved for Hayes, 17 for McMahon.
Look, man, the Rockies need something nice to happen for them.
They got enough nice things.
No, they don't. They don't get any nice things.
All right,
ever.
we can move to shortstop where we got Francisco Lindor, Dansby Swanson, and Ezekiel Tovar. Tovar surprisingly on here as a rookie. He actually was pretty freaking good as a defender. I think Dansby Swanson led all major leaguers with plus 20 outs above average, and Lindor 6 outs above average, but he's perennially Gold Glove candidate. I'm going Dansby.
Yeah, I'm also going Dansby. That's my boy.
In the left field, we got Ian Happ, David Peralta, and Eddie Rosario. No idea how David Peralta and Eddie Rosario are on here. Happ is going to win.
Yeah, he definitely is. He's 100% going. He
tied for third among outfielders with 12 assists. And then we can move to center field, which I think we got a pretty good class here. You got Brenton Doyle, Michael Harris II, and Alec Thomas. Brenton Doyle, rookie for the Rockies, not well known at all, but he had the best arm in all of baseball. And the StatCast fielding run value metric, which is different than outs above average, had him leading all players with plus 21 there. He also had plus 7 outs above average. As much as Harris is like a flashier, better, more known defender, I think Doyle's going to win this one because he was like so good in that super expansive outfield in Colorado.
I think that has to play a part in it too, just because like he did all of this extremely well in Coors, which is probably the most difficult outfield to play in all of baseball. Also, if you like weird old kind of stats, he led all of baseball in UZR. So he led all of baseball in Ultimate Zone.
And then right field, Mookie Betts, Fernando Tatis Jr., and Lane Thomas. I would go Mookie Betts, but I think I'm going to have him for another award because Fernando Tatis moved from shortstop to the outfield and was actually really good. His arm is one of the best in baseball, and he actually played really well out there in right field. I think he had the third most assists among outfielders, trailing only Nolan Jones and Lane Thomas, who is on here. 18 assists for Lane Thomas, 12 for Tatis, but Tatis was really good this year.
Yeah, Tatis led all right fielders in the NL and outs above. Like he led in outs above average and defensive run saved. I think there's an outside chance he's going to compete with his teammate for a Platinum Glove. So I think I gotta go Fernando Tatis Jr. here.
And then utility, we got Mookie Betts, Tommy Edman, and Ha-Seong Kim. I think Kim's gonna win at second base. Not a Tommy Edman guy, and Mookie Betts playing right field, shortstop, and second base on elite level is crazy. I got Mookie Betts here.
Yeah, I'm also going to go with Mookie. I'm not going to go for Tommy Edman.
And we'll wrap it up with pitcher Jesus Luzardo, Taijuan Walker, Zach Wheeler. I love my guy, Zach Wheeler. I'm going with him for no reason.
Let's go Luzardo.
Nice.
Seems like a good year to be Luzardo.
And that'll wrap up. Obviously, we'll cover these when they are announced after the World Series. We've got, obviously, but I don't know if we'll do a mid-World Series episode because we got game on Friday. Maybe we can go on Sunday.
We can do that.
We got game on Friday and Saturday, and then we got day off on Sunday. Then it goes Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I go to Arizona on Wednesday for first pitch Arizona, and then the final 2 games are on Friday and Saturday if necessary. And then after that, it's an awards season. And obviously, I think we'll get back onto a regularly scheduled weekly schedule for that and the ensuing offseason transactions.
Sick. Luzardo actually led all of pitchers in the NL in defensive runs saved. So I'm a genius. I'd pick the best one on a whim. I know ball. I know
Yeah,
ball.
you do. Okay.
Yeah.
Can't argue with that.
Ultimate
Keep me in
ball
fantasy.
knower. I sure did. Jake's a bum. I'm the best fantasy baseball player of all time. Next year, I'm going to come in dead last, probably.
They're going to fire me.
Yep. Yeah. You just ask me. I'm going to start writing all the articles. Please don't ask me to. I don't want to do that. But yeah, I mean, fun times for baseball. We got a cool World Series matchup. We got awards to talk about. Things are all coming up Millhouse in the baseball sphere.
Yeah. Think it's time to bring in the closer.
Definitely.
All right. Today we got Billy Koch coming in to close out our podcast. Billy Koch had a 6-year career from 1999 to 2004, during which he pitched for the Blue Jays, the A's, the White Sox, and the Florida Marlins. He was drafted by the Mets in the 4th round of the 1993 draft, but he did not sign because he was later drafted by the Blue Jays in the 1st round, 4th overall of the 1996 draft. He pitched in the Olympics that year, and he was groomed to be the closer of the future. He debuted in May of 1999 versus his future team, the A's. That outing, he tossed 2 2/3 hitless innings, not allowing a run, walking 1 and striking out 2. And he was the closer right out of the gate. 1999, 3.39 ERA, 31 saves that allowed him to finish 7th in AL Rookie of the Year award voting. And he maintained his closer role during his time in Toronto. 2000, he had a career best 2.63 ERA, a career best 1.22 whip, and 33 saves. And then in 2001, he had a 4.80 ERA to go along with 36 saves. Definitely a step back. But then prior to 2002, he was traded to the Moneyball A's for Eric Hinske and Justin Miller. He had the best season of his career in his lone campaign in Oakland. He tossed a career high 93 2/3 innings while striking out a career high 93 batters with a 3.27 ERA, a 1.27 whip, a career high 44 saves. And he also led the AL in 84 games and the majors with 79 games finished. He became the first pitcher in MLB history to record 10 or more wins and 40 or more saves. That's a good trivia question. He was the A's primary closer during their 20-game win streak, made famous by the Moneyball movie. He finished 18th in AL MVP award voting. He earned the AL Raleigh Relief Man of the Year award. But the turning point of his career came when he surrendered a critical 9th-inning long ball to Twins catcher AJ Pierzynski in the deciding game of the A's 1st round postseason matchup. This was a guy that had like incredible stuff, but not a lot of command. It's what the typical modern day closer was or is, but wasn't common back then. So that's why his whips were so high, but his strikeout totals were really good and why he was able to pitch as well as he did for the beginning of his career. But he was really inconsistent. He would occasionally lose his command and sort of not figure things out. He was traded to the White Sox prior to 2002, but was unable to replicate the success he had to start his career in 2002. He had a 5.77 ERA and 11 saves. And then he compiled 8 saves with a 5.40 ERA in 2003 and was subsequently traded to the Florida Marlins midseason. He pitched better with the Marlins, a 3.51 ERA, and that earned himself a 1-year deal to return to the Blue Jays prior to 2004. But instead, the team released him during spring training, and Koch vowed not to sign with another team so that the Jays would be on the hook for every penny of his $950,000 contract. That's pretty petty. And then he never played again, even though 2004 would have been just his age 30 campaign. So that wrapped up Billy Koch's career, during which he racked up 5.4 Baseball Reference WAR across 407 and a third innings pitched with 357 strikeouts, a 3.89 ERA, a 1.40 whip, and 163 saves, which is good for 79th on the all-time saves leaderboard.
All-time petty from Billy Koch. That's so sick. I love that. I'm not signing with anyone, so you have to pay me all of the money you owe me. It's
and then never play baseball again.
Yeah, I'm done playing baseball out of spite. That's so sick. Shout out to that guy. Shout out to the Athletes Hub who sponsor our podcast. You can follow them on Twitter at Athletes Hub, and you can go check out all of their stuff on their website at theathleteshub.org. You can follow me on Twitter at DVSBird, like you can see at the bottom of our screen. And you can follow Jake Crumpler at Jake Crumpler on Twitter/X or whatever Elon wants to call it at this point. Yeah. Read all of Jake's stuff on the cajillion websites he writes for, such as.
That's right. Pitcherlist.com. Have not written an article yet since the season ended, but I'll probably need to write at least one. But I do a podcast there as well. It's called In the Pen. We talk about relievers every other week during the off season. That one will come out on Fridays. And then I also write for baseballhq.com. The content is dead right now for what I do, but once the off season starts rolling, once we get to all the transactions, then I start picking things up. But most of my stuff will be on Pitcher List. Obviously, watch Free Baseball whenever we go live. You can find all of my work at crumplerbaseball.com.
Dope. This was a really good episode of the podcast. Super excited for the World Series, and make sure you check back in with us. Make sure you follow our accounts and stuff so you know when we're going live, so you can hang out with us while we talk baseball. Really appreciate anyone that stayed to watch. Awesome. That's all we have for this evening. Peace. See ya.